Terry, and this is a developing story that we continue to look at. What's taking place in the political landscape? And this is what came out of the post-cabinet news briefing yesterday. If you're just joining us, well, yesterday the Prime Minister addressed the public on the Daryl Smith report. We're going to share with you that story, and then we're going to start an interview with Michael Quamina. A man identified as Mr. Quamina was listed and his name named in that report, as well as the letter. Michael Quamina will be joining us in a short bit to give his side of the story. His name is now being dragged into a public scandal. What does he have to say? But this is what the Prime Minister had to say.
There's no cover-up. I have nothing to hide.
Dr. Raleigh was responding to this report in Thursday's Guardian newspaper. The article revealed that there was an attempt to cover up the circumstances surrounding the dismissal and payment of $150,000 to a former employee of the Sport Ministry after she alleged she was sexually harassed by Smith. It was one of the major findings of the report of a committee set up by the Prime Minister himself. Insisting that he is not an attorney, Dr. Raleigh said he took the best course of action within his remit.
Whatever the relationship the minister had with her, whatever the relationship she had with him, the bottom line is, from where I sat, the minister's involvement in resulting in that termination resulted in the minister being dismissed.
Dr. Raleigh noted when the allegations surfaced, he had spoken to Daryl Smith before giving him the axe. So then what was the purpose of the report?
If you're saying that the PS told the minister that there was a cover-up somewhere in the system there, that is what this report was meant to elucidate.
But the findings of this report, Dr. Raleigh maintains, cannot be publicly disclosed because it was improperly concluded. This, he added, was the advice given to the Attorney General by senior counsel.
If I make that report public and the report contains slander of an individual, the individual could sue me.
It's a lesson, he said, was learned during the live sport fiasco when that report was made public.
Mr. Roberts was complaining that he was not party to the findings of the report. But lo and behold, the report then was made public. And Mr. Roberts was now able to go to court, sue the state. He won, and the state had to pay serious liabilities and costs, and the report could not be used.
Dr. Raleigh also indicated the former employee was compensated based on wrongful dismissal and had nothing to do with the allegations. Nevertheless, he said taxpayers had to pay the price. The Prime Minister made it clear at no time the Cabinet had to deliberate on any part of this matter, including the amount paid to the claimant. Bhavita Gopalchan, CNC3 News.
Well, joining us on the line at this time, Attorney-at-Law Michael Quamina. Mr. Quamina is a well-known member of the legal community. He sits on several state boards. He's also one of the attorneys attached to the Prime Minister's personal legal team. But this morning, he's here to respond to a number of allegations that have been made, not directly against him, but his name is being cited as part of a report and part of an interviewing process. Mr. Quamina, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Hema. Well done.
Now, Mr. Quamina, let me first start. There was a letter that made its way into the public domain. In that letter, it cited a Mr. Quamina. Are you the Mr. Quamina referred to in that letter that made its way into the media?
I am that Mr. Quamina.
Mr. Quamina, what was your role in this entire situation? Now, first, we're seeing all of the stories, trade dispute, allegations have been made, a committee was set up, a settlement was made. What exactly was your role?
When somebody alleges that they've been wrongfully dismissed, they make a report to the Ministry of Labour. The Ministry of Labour goes through a conciliation process where they try to resolve the matter before it goes on to the industrial court. My understanding is that the matter was at the Ministry of Labour. A conciliation process was being undergone at the Ministry of Labour. At that point in time, the feeling was that the conciliation process was not going as well as the ministry would like. Figures were a little too high in terms of what was being asked for insofar as the wrongful dismissal is concerned. And as is not unusual in my career, at that point in time, the ministry felt it necessary to involve me in an effort to bring an amicable resolution to the matter. I became involved at that point in time. I sat down with the union. I took instructions from the ministry. I took instructions from the minister in terms of allegation was being made in relation to the question of the dismissal. And based on those instructions, I engaged in a negotiation process and satisfactorily negotiated the matter.
Now, you look at the statements that have now been made, and I know this is now turned into a political situation, but when I listened to one NGO and one activist in particular call for this matter to be investigated by the police, but then he also called into question the position that you sit on other state boards, saying that there's a possible conflict of interest and that you should be removed. Do you see that there's a conflict of interest in relation to your role in this matter and the other positions that you sit on?
Well, first things first, I don't want to diminish the importance and the seriousness of a sexual harassment allegation. I just want to make it clear that at the point in time that I was involved in the matter, it was a pure dismissal matter and a pure wrongful dismissal matter. But whether it is a wrongful dismissal matter or a sexual harassment matter, what was reported to the ministry was a dismissal, and in whatever situation is involved, a lawyer becomes involved, and a lawyer is going to negotiate the matter. He's either going to fight it, defend it, or negotiate it. That is the role of a lawyer. So there's no real excitement involved in that situation. That is the role of a lawyer, and I am a lawyer, and that really was my involvement, and it has nothing to do whatsoever with my role on any other board. So the two are not to be mistaken. You use your skills as a lawyer on the board, but there's no conflict. And that's how I see it.
Ms. Quamina, let me also ask you, this has now turned into a political, I have to say it's a political controversy. The word cover-up has been used on several newspapers. Yesterday it started. One was saying massive cover-up. Today again, one paper accusing the Prime Minister of not being truthful to the country. Do you believe that this is a cover-up?
Well, two things. No, it's not a cover-up. Again, the process that was followed, is not unusual. It happens every day. You have negotiations, you arrive at a settlement, you enter into a settlement agreement. I gave the ministry a written advice in relation to the matter, so there's a record. So the fact about it is that there's no cover-up. That's number one. And number two is, as I understand the issue with the committee, the issue is not that they did not investigate the matter. The issue at the end of the day is that having arrived at findings that were adverse, what they were called upon to do is to call people back in who they consider that they may possibly arrive at adverse conclusions in relation to, and tell them that. And so that they will have an opportunity to answer those particular allegations. So I think that is the lack of clarity insofar as that is concerned. It's not that there was not an initial investigation or an initial meeting, but once a committee of that nature says to themselves, okay, we are possibly going to make adverse findings against person X, then they need to call person X back in and say to that person, look here, we are likely to make these adverse findings. What do you have to say? And I think that is possibly the mix-up that is taking place insofar as understanding what the concern is with respect to the process.
Ms. Quamina, your closing comments on this matter, and you say that your role in this was as a lawyer, that there's no conflict of interest. You were called in to settle a trade dispute. You are a well-known member of the legal fraternity. You also say that there's no cover-up, that maybe there's a little confusion as to what the process was in the end. This is a very messy situation. A number of persons are now being called, the competency of a number of persons are now being called into question. What do you want to say to Trinidad and Tobago in relation to this, and your role in particular?
Well, I don't think that there's, first things first, you're saying that I say that these are the things, but that's not what I'm saying. That the fact about it is that I acted as a lawyer in relation to the matter. There was an allegation, and that's the point. This is not a person. And again, one regrets the events surrounding the thing, but the person elected to go to court, bring it as a trade dispute, say I was wrongfully dismissed. And when matters go to court as a trade dispute, lawyers become become involved. And the options are fight it or settle it. And the decision was made to settle, which happens every minute of every day. So it is not extraordinary, the process that was followed. Not extraordinary whatsoever. If one wants to say there should be sexual harassment policies insofar as ministries and entities are concerned, that is an excellent policy, and I support that 100%. But the path that this matter took was not extraordinary. The resolution of this matter was not extraordinary. And insofar as the process is concerned, I think that a mountain is being made out of a molehill. Now, insofar as question as to whether there was sexual harassment or not, and how one should deal with that in other circumstances, well then certainly that is a topic of discussion.
Sure. Ms. Quamina, I do want to thank you very much for taking our call this morning on such short notice and responding to some of the statements being made, and also to clarify some of the statements being made. Michael Quamina, the attorney-at-law. Mr. Quamina is a well-known member of the legal fraternity. He also sits on a number of state boards, and he's also been attached to several high-profile matters in this country. He's saying that in this matter, this was his role. This is what he had to do. There's no unusual circumstances in terms of what was followed in the procedure and the matter that he was called in to question and to be part of. We take a short break. When we come back, we're going to tell you how you can stay in touch with us, and also we have a team dispatch as a breaking news development coming out of a search that's taking place right now. We're going to tell you about that. Stay with us.